Hi guys, it's Kelly here and I'm back with another video. Today's video, we are going to be doing our own custom color embossing powder. I was actually really surprised at how easy this was and how well this worked. So here, this kind of came about from a need that I had. The embossing powder on the right is the one that I'm trying to recreate because it's been discontinued. And the one on the left is the one that we're going to end up making. Now mine in particular is meant to look like sand, but this will work for any color that you are trying to create. And it worked really well. So I'm using some products from Pretty Pink Posh, and I'm going to be doing a like sand pale beach kind of card. The embossing powder that I absolutely loved that has been discontinued is Hero Art's sand embossing powder. And a lot of people didn't even know that that type of embossing powder exists, but it's made to mimic the look of sand. And I love scene cards. So here is that embossing powder there. And I do have some left, but I was worried, because I'm going to use it all and then what will I have left? So I wanted to see if I could recreate the look of it. So this is just a scrap piece of paper and I've just smushed down some clear embossing powder. And I'm going to sprinkle this on. There's light tones, there's dark tones, there's metallics, there's some white, there's a lot. It's a multicolor embossing powder. And so I knew in order to kind of mimic that look that I was going to have a couple of different colors. Plus, this is the first time I've done this. So I knew that I was going to need to have a little bit of room for experimenting. But then once you heat set this and dry this down, you'll see in just a second how shiny it is, and you can see kind of like a little bit of the gold and stuff in it. And so I knew that I was going to have to add some metallics in. So I have a clear embossing powder and a white embossing powder. This is important for this mix to have both, but if you are looking to color them like we are here, I'm going to be using alcohol inks. You can use regular alcohol inks. You could use alcohol marker refills. That's what I have here. These are two Copic marker refills, and that's how I'm going to color them. You're going to be, I think, really surprised, or at least I was, to see the difference between the clear and the white. So this one is the clear. I started scooping it and I was like, that's silly. I'm just going to kind of dump it in there. And I've done 2 clear for the light and the dark. And then I'm going to do 2 white for the light and the dark. And you're going to see that it will color both of them, but it looks different. So the clear ones, because it's made to be transparent, it absorbs more of the color, whereas the white ones, because they're made to be opaque, they come off much lighter. And you can see just from the couple of drops that I did, and you don't need a ton. I think I did like 4 drops of the dark and 5 or 6 of the light. And then this is just a dye release tool. You can use whatever you want to stir yours up. You just want to keep stirring it until you get all of the particles colored. I stir it for quite a while before you add any more ink, because really I didn't need any more than just those couple of drops. I just needed to incorporate it throughout. So the top 2 are my light brown, which in this case is an E31, but again, you can, whatever color you're using. And then the bottom 2 are going to be my dark brown. And you can see that the clear is much, much darker, but when we heat these, they are the ones that are more transparent. So they definitely look different and they react differently when we are heat setting them. So in the meantime, while we're letting those dry, that's something that's very, very important because alcohol is flammable. So you have to let them completely dry and let all that alcohol dissipate before you try to use them and heat set them. I repeat, you have to let them dry completely. They are flammable when wet. Don't try to heat them when they are wet. They will catch fire. Okay. So I've done all of my die cutting and I'm using the stitched seashells and the sand pail. And then I'm just going to add all of my my colors with some ink blending. We're not really going to be doing too much of anything else. I think I did add just a little bit of Copic marker on my seashells just because it was like the easiest way to get the stripes colored. But for most of it, I'm going to be using my ink blending. And so for that here, I'm just using some masking tape. You can use low tack tape. I have mint tape. This one in particular is the Post-it note tape and works really well. So I'm just going in and I'm adding a little bit of of shading onto the handle and the base of the shovel. And then I'm going to flip that around to add onto like the main part of the handle of the shovel. And I'm just, this is, what color cardstock is this? I think this is coral. I think it's coral from Sunkissed Coral, I think, from Gina K. Nonetheless, I'll double check it and link it below. So I'm just adding with like some pinks and like pinks and reds saltwater taffy. And then for the seashells, because seashells are typically pretty neutral, I am using definitely some lighter colors, antique linen, scattered straw, dried marigold, and that saltwater taffy. I'm not, this is totally sped up. I'm not being super heavy handed with them because I want them to read as lighter, as whiter. You know how those seashells in real life are out on the beach, they're getting sun bleached, all of those things. But I wanted them to have some color, and I wanted them to have color that was going to complement my pale. So here I'm just kind of sporadically adding them, really no rhyme or reason, a little bit of orange, a little bit of yellow, a little bit of tan, a little bit of pink, you know, whatever strikes your fancy. And so once I was happy with the way that they were looking, which really didn't take too long at all, some of them I did go back and kind of revisit like this, to add a little bit more darkness, the scattered straw. And then to add a little bit of texture to them, I am going to just smush down my ink pads. I'm going to add just like a little spray of water to each one. And then I'm going to take a paintbrush and just splatter my seashells. Again, this is just going to add some texture and some interest to them. Nothing too crazy. For the handle, I am just using a seasoned brush that has, I think it's gray on it, just to add a little bit of depth. And honestly, I don't even think I ended up using the handle. For the shore, what I'm doing here is I'm marking my horizon line. So the background is going to be like the ocean where this like pail of sand is sitting into the surf. And so I'm just marking that. And then I'm going to use that same Post-it note tape to mark off my horizon. So that way I can ink blend the sky and then I can ink blend the water. This was you can see me down there in the bottom corner. This is an edited live that I did, and I was really really happy with the way that it came out. Sometimes when I'm doing a live stream, I don't, because creating's a process, right? So sometimes you get the results that you're looking for right away, and sometimes you don't. And so there have been times where I'm like, you know what, guys, I'm not going to be able to finish it. I'm going to have to rework it and figure out what's going to work for me. This one came together, and the only thing that I changed actually was the color of the sentiment. But other than that, it worked really well. So for the sky, I am using a super light hand, and I am doing the salvage patina and then the salty ocean. And then I'm going to remove that for the horizon line, and then I'm going to move it up top to mask off the sky so that I can do the water. For the water, I chose more like tealish colors because I do like those with a coral. I love anything with a coral, honestly. Those were navy and coral was my wedding colors. But I did like keep it more to like kind of like the greenish side with the salvage patina, the peacock feathers. And then, like I brought those down pretty far. Now the bottom portion is actually going to be our shoreline, and that's where the sand's going to be. So that's why you see me, like I'm not taking the water all the way down. I don't need to. We're going to cover part of that up, and we're going to stick our bucket kind of behind that shoreline. So this week's been very hectic. So it's been back to school for my oldest. And then my dad, so those of you who have been around and watched the channel for a long time, you know that my mom passed. So my dad's, like we take care of him. He's very independent still. But he does sometimes need some assistance. So anyway, he was going to go out of town because it's their wedding anniversary. This week was their wedding anniversary. And they always went to Vegas for their anniversary. And so he doesn't always get to go the same week, but he does, try to still, celebrate their anniversary by doing the same things that they always did. Here, I just added a little bit of blue to the top, like where it would meet, so it kind of blends in, and then I'm going to add the sand to the bottom. But this time, my husband went to go pick him up to take him to the airport, and he was like, "What do you know about knees?" Eric was like, "Well, what's wrong with yours?" So apparently he stood up from his chair and he heard something pop, and then he had pain in his knee, and you know how like stubborn your parents can be? because mine can be super stubborn. And so Eric basically had to talk him into not going to the airport and going to the emergency room with the promise of like, hey, if they tell you everything's okay, then we'll put you on a flight tomorrow. But turns out they told him that he needed to see an orthopedic surgeon, and he needed an MRI. So instead of doing what we were going to do, which is a whole other story with carpet and paint and all that jazz, we ended up hanging out with him this weekend. And like I went over, made dinner, my sisters, and I got to see my sisters and stuff because we were all there. But then today he finally went to the surgeon, and it turns out he did not need an MRI or surgery. Thank God. He actually just pulled his hamstring. So now we have to wait 4 to 6 weeks for that to heal on its own. But it's been hectic with all of the things going on. Let's go back to the card. So here I wanted to see into the bucket to see all the seashells and the sand and stuff, but I didn't want it to necessarily be a full-blown shaker card, like with the foam and all of that. So I did cut the acetate with the base, and you saw me do them at the same time because acetate typically does cut better when it has a piece of cardstock behind it. But then I will use that to create the card so that I can see through it into the little pail for all of our pretty little seashells. And then I did 2 different sentiments. I didn't end up using the banner, and I did end up using the other one that says you are, what does it say? Special, I think is what it says, like play on the shell thing. So here I am using just a tape runner to adhere it to my acetate. And then I am going to use a double-sided adhesive. I just trimmed it down so it would be thin enough. And I put it all over except for the top portion. I didn't put any adhesive on the top yet because I need to be able to put in all of my little ocean treasures, all of my little seashells and my sand. So I pulled those off, and then I adhered what would be like the shaker frame with the acetate down to the base. And then this is where I was like, oh, I need to add everything I need to add to the seashells. I got to do it now. So I'm going to add just a little bit of color, like some stripies, and then some shimmer. So in addition to all of the things that we have going on, like with, my dad and getting to him to his different appointments and stuff, we also have had, multiple things going on with school. Oh, we're back to the embossing. All right. So now everything is dry and it's very clumpy. So you can kind of go into your trays, whatever you've chose to do them in. This is just an old paint tray. And you can kind of like smush them around with your finger. What I'm actually going to do is I am going to put them into my craft trays. I love these things. I use them so much. I'm going to put them into my little craft tray, and then that way I can pour it into a bag. This is just like a jewelry bag that I have from other crafts. And then I'm going to pour it in there so that way I have somewhere to keep it for me to use it in the future. And it makes it nice and easy for me to kind of go through and crunch up all of those kind of chunky bits. And you can do it you can make it as fine as you would like by how much you smush it around. This is also where, because mine is multicolored, remember I'm trying to recreate that sand look, I'm going to add in my metallic. And I think I added in some gold and some platinum. And then I'm also going to add in a little bit of white. So mine is multicolored, but if you're only making one color, then you wouldn't have to worry about adding in all of the little extra bits. I do think that it makes it very, very interesting to see like all the different combinations that you could come up with. And I will be honest, I have not tried this and used it just as like one solid color. I was specifically trying to recreate this one that I loved that's been discontinued. So if you do try this and you do one solid color, I would be interested for you to tell me. Okay, so this part I love, but don't do it yet. Okay, do as I say, not as I do. So here I've kind of put in my seashells, and I want there to be the sand in the bucket, but I'm doing it too early. Don't do it yet, because I'm going to heat emboss the surf onto the bottom of the bucket. And I ended up running into a problem where I was trying to keep this embossing powder away from the heat source so it didn't melt. So don't do that. Wait on the sand in the bucket if you're recreating this specific card. So I did add all of my shimmer to my seashells, and then I'm using some Tombow Mono multi-glue. It dries repositionable. So I just put a little bit on the back. I tapped it until it was dry. Now I am going to put that adhesive onto the top, but I'm not going to peel off its backer piece yet. That's just so that I can seal it up with the sand inside once I'm done. And then the reason that I'm using the repositionable adhesive is so that I can go in and arrange my seashells and they will stay where I put them until I can get them exactly where I want them. So now that I have them where I want them, then I can go ahead and remove that and then seal it up. And then it is like a little shaker because that sand does move around, but it's not a traditional shaker. So here is where I'm going to put, this is always my intention, to put it over the sandy portion that we've ink blended. And what you see me doing is using a finger dauber. And I'm just going right over that brown with some clear embossing ink. You can use Versamark. You can, I think the one I was using was Honeybee, whichever one you have. And then I'm also going to just do it on our tester piece. That's the piece that you saw in the beginning, just so I can compare them next to each other. And then I'm just going to take my bag over a clean piece of copy paper. I'm going to sprinkle it on there. In order to make the edge a little bit more organic, I just used my finger to kind of rub it across the top so that there was a little less embossing powder there. And then that's me just putting it on the extra edge. And then I'm just going to go ahead and heat set it. And I was delighted with how well this worked to create that sand texture. I do think my sand is a little bit lighter than the original mix, but that's okay, because if I wanted to adjust that, I could just always go in and do more of the darker color. But I do think it works to create the sand texture, and here you'll see them kind of next to each other. Like I said, I think mine's a little lighter, but other than that, I do think it's working. I think it's working pretty well. So I was very happy with it. So then just to put the rest of the card together, I am going to recreate the surf. There's a couple of different ways you can do that. I'm going to use a combination. So for the background, I am going to use some white puff embossing powder, and I'm going to put it on the same way with the finger dauber with the clear embossing, and then I'll put on the white puff embossing powder. I have one from Hero Arts. I also have one from Wow. They both work really well. Wow has another one that is like a twinkle puff. So in addition to the white puff, it also has a little bit of sparkle in it. I really like that one. So you can use whatever works for you. These are great to have for winter as well. So that's how I'm going to do that. And then that's the one that I also added to the bottom of the what is that? The pail, so that it would look like it was in the surf. And then I was having to keep the two separated. So that was not fun. But anyway, so it's been back to school. So we've been doing the schedule. We've been doing open house, working on like different issues that we've had with his bus route. So it's been a little bit hectic, not necessarily bad, but just there's been a lot going on. So here I do like to go in with a clean brush when I do the surf, just to clean up those edges and make sure that my white puff embossing powder is not everywhere. And so that is what I did there, and then added it to the bottom because I am sitting it specifically into the surf. I want to, have both of them be white. And then I'm just going to heat set it, and you'll see it puffs up really nicely. Yeah, I recommend, if you're going to do just the background like this and you're not going to have anything that kind of breaks up that shoreline, doing 2 coats to really bring those 2 pieces of cardstock together. Yeah, so anyway, it's been a little bit wild, but I'm hoping to continue with the doing the live streams. I enjoy them very much, and I like being able to hang out with you guys. Right now, I think I'm doing about 2 a month. But if that's something that you enjoy, please let me know if you would like to continue to see more. If techniques like this is something that you enjoy, I like being able to stretch my supplies and kind of get more out of what I have. So I'm happy to, experiment and see what we can make together. So that is the full card. I did the You Are So, it is, isn't it? It's special, like shell, Shell, right? Yeah. I couldn't remember what it was. So anyway, I did that. I did end up changing it. It's still white heat embossed, but I did it on craft and I did end up liking that better. So you'll see that in the final image. But that's it. That's our custom colored embossing powder. And I hope inspires you to give it a try for yourself. Thank you guys so much for joining me. I always appreciate your time and I will catch you on the next video. Bye.